So I guess a question I have for you, maybe one could even say the $1 million question, is how would you say people, obviously you're a huge advocate of happiness, and I am as well. Like, pursue living a life that you're happy with, that excites you, rather than some people say, well, pursue a life where you're successful or you're financially crushing it. It's like, there's a lot of people that are financially doing very well, but that are not happy. But I think there's not as many people that are happy that have some of the other bad. You know what I mean? Like, happiness
Yeah.
trumps success, I would say. And so I'm curious for you, like, how would you say people increase their happiness? Like, you've been studying this, you're a huge advocate of it. How do we be happier?
Increase it. One of the biggest things I say, because everybody is always tapped in and tied in to whatever's going on their iPhone, right? They're
Yeah,
always paying attention, but very rarely do we unplug and find out what we think and what we want and what makes us feel relaxed or feel enthused. And that's what I've always done. I mean, I'm constantly like, I don't say a news junkie. I always am paying attention to what's going on. But every morning, and I've done this for years, and every night I will find a little space and I'll say, all right, what's my mind doing? What am I looking forward to today? What is the kind of day I'm looking forward to? And I used to do this all the time, Stu, because at one point I had a couple of offices, many people, everybody depended on me. And if I didn't shore up myself, my mindset, my emotions at the beginning of the day, then I would have an
for
onslaught of
sure.
onslaughts. So I learned how to almost become the center point of my energy. So I would say this to anybody
Hmm.
in the morning, if you get up a little earlier, it's so well worth it. Find your own center point. Find out what's important to you. Decide. Some people like reading a lot. Other people are very spiritual and they may have some scriptures or something inspirational.
Right.
I would literally live in that space and I would go to the office early and I would make sure I established what that space felt like. And I
I love
actually
that.
created like an energy border for myself. And then what was good, my energy was always positive because people would say, Maura, we can't do it. Maura, we need a change of this. What are we going to call? It was always one of those. And what happened is that I became that person of the positive energy. So people listening today, I would say the same thing. Learn how to be the focal point and the author and the creator of those things that are important to you, what you envision, what you like. And let's say you're really busy right now, but there's other things you want to do. Take that time every morning to focus in on those things that are important. And at the end of the day, go back and say, how did the day go? Was I pursuing those things where I feel free,
Hmm.
where I felt energized, where I
Right.
feel like I'm learning and exercising myself? And believe it or not, I did this international survey and I asked people how they would describe happiness. And you know what they all said? They said
What to
it's
say?
healthy relationships. So that's the whole thing with the energy. Do I have some people in my life that are toxic that maybe I don't need 100% of? That, a little bit of freedom, the ability to
Hmm.
pursue something that's important to you or a value. And the other thing would be is that as you continue to do it, you feel confident. And I thought, isn't that really what life is all about? It's we find out what's good for our souls and we find ways to exercise it. And then before we know it,
Yeah.
we a bigger version, a happier version, and the energy that's expending out of us not only will do better, but then we're helping others to kind of like get there too.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think it's so important to learn about yourself. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes we go through life and we're like, I have a friend who, even when I was doing research on you, his name's Antonio Neves, and he has a book he wrote. It's called "Stop Living on Autopilot." And as I was researching you and hearing some of the things you do, it's like, sometimes we do go through our life and we're just going, moving, doing, going, moving, and we don't take that moment to say like, whoa, let me check in with myself and let me ask myself like, how are you? You know what I mean? We go around the world and we have conversations with other people. We go, oh, how are you doing? But it's like, when was the last time you asked yourself, how are you doing? And I think sometimes we need to really ask ourselves that question more because unfortunately for a decent amount of people, we may ask ourselves, how are we doing? And if we're honest with ourselves, we may go, well, you know what? I'm not super happy in my job, or I'm not, I have some relationships, like you said, that maybe aren't feeding me, but they're taking away from me. And it's so ridiculously important just to make sure you're checking in with yourself.
I'm so glad you said that. And that's so true. I think most people externalize their life. It's like, what should I buy?
Yeah.
Who should I hang out with? What event should I go to? At least prior to COVID, right?
Yeah.
But they externalize life. But to go within, a lot of people either were never told, never stopped long enough to think about it. That's why a lot of people end up, they have got like breakdowns, or they don't realize why they are drinking every night into
Yeah.
oblivion, or they're medicated. But it's a skill set. And the thing is, the more you do it and the more you, even if it's like 5% at a time, 2% at a time, what you're doing is you're taking stock of your life. You're also taking control, and you're taking authorship versus being on autopilot and having somebody else run your life.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Like, I was listening to a podcast or something the other day, and it was about like becoming a monk. And when you go to become a monk, one of the first things they teach you is how do you breathe. And you look at something like that, and it's like, and this could be a whole nother conversation, but it's like you grow up and you don't learn how to breathe. Does someone teach you how to think? Does someone teach you, basic communication skills to share how you're feeling and what's going on in your life? It's like there's so many things that unfortunately we're not really taught as we grow up. So as you get older, you have to be very intentional about like, what are the things that I really need to learn and study to create a happy life? You know what I mean?
It's so true. It's so true. And a lot of people end up having to learn almost by default because they think, oh my gosh, I'm so miserable. Or why is it that I keep getting divorced, or I can't have good relationships with other people or anything that lasts? And a lot of times it's because they don't just sit back. Now you're saying even breathe. You're right.
Yeah.
Go take a walk, go to a yoga class, get on a bicycle, get a chance to connect with your soul. Because I'm telling you, a lot of people are afraid of it. They're afraid of what they might hear.
True
But
that.
if you could listen to your soul speak, I think there'd be such a sense of peace in it. Like sometimes we don't want to look in the mirror, but if we're willing to do and say, am I living a life that's authentic for me? And if you're not, and you make the change, it makes a huge difference. There are pictures of me, and I've often shown this to people because I always want to talk about how what's going on the inside of you shows up on the out.
Totally. Big
Picture of
time.
me, 15 years old, and I pulled off. Somebody posted it on Facebook years ago.
Huh.
In the first picture, it didn't even show my face, and I thought, I know who that is. It was me at 15, and I looked and felt once I turned around like I was a 70-year-old person, stooped over, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, because that's where I was living at the time. And I show people that even though I've had lots of changes in my life, a lot of things I would have to like break through. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing is my energy that I exude now at my age
Yeah.
is better than what it was at 15. And then if you see a picture of me at 23 before I left law school, I was like walking zombie. I was
Yeah.
there it was in a box. And so it's worth it. It's work. I don't want to tell people it's so easy, just go on out and
Right.
do your job.
Yeah, it is work.
But the work, what'll happen is that as you work from the inside out, something of life starts to manifest. And then it becomes its own sense of life. And really, every time I talk about, whether it's happiness or self-development, or I love leadership, lead yourself and be a person of
Yeah.
who knows how to lead yourself. But the point that I always try to tell people is that you will be happy with yourself in the end, and you'll help other people to be happier too. And that somewhere along the line, you end up becoming a bigger, bolder, but more relaxed person. It doesn't mean that there's arrogance. There's nothing about it.
Yeah.
You're actually comfortable in your own skin.